G'day. A few weeks ago on the forum I normally hang out on, a couple of the guys were asking about oil cans. The cheap imports don't seem to be sealed and all sorts of other things. And someone found some plans on another forum for an oil can, which was... When I looked at the original oil can and the plans presented, I thought, well, actually there's some room there to actually improve on that. And so today in the shed I've spent the time making up one of these. And this is fabricated aluminium, but it's got a conical piece there, straight piece, which aren't too difficult to make. And on the bottom here, using my dimple technology, I've actually got a dished base and then a rounded corner to act as an oil can, and this will hold something like 250 mils, so about a cup. So it's a handy size, and with the flat bottom it'll be stable. So I thought I'd just run you through how I made that. I've still got a way to go because I've got to work out a pump mechanism and see if there's a better material than aluminium to make these out of, probably some steel or maybe some stainless even. We'll have to see, but it was an interesting little exercise. I need a tool to form the bottom of the can, and so I've decided I'm going to use a form tool to press that in, a bit like the dimple tools I've done earlier, but bigger. The first thing I'm doing is putting a spigot on the piece of material I've selected for my bottom die. The purpose of that is twofold. One is it's going to give me something to hang on to in a 3-jaw chuck as I trim the outside down to size. But the second thing that it's going to do is it's going to locate in a piece of plate that I use on my hydraulic press, and so that way I can secure it. With most of these forming type of operations, you need to make sure the top die and the bottom die are aligned, otherwise you get things which aren't what you wanted. I've had to clean the hole up a little bit. There's a couple of bits of rust and all that sort of thing, but that fits very nicely. One tip when putting close-fitting circular features together is that if you just try pushing in like that, it may hang up on you. If you give them a bit of a rotation while you're putting it in, it goes in a little bit more smoothly. And that's thanks to Kevin for that little tip. I've now reversed the piece and I've put a dish in the middle here. This dish is around about 8 degrees, so it's going to give me about a 2mm dish in the bottom, and that's mainly for stability. If you look at the bottom of pretty much any commercially made vessel, you don't have full contact. You've got generally a circular contact and then it's relieved, and so I'm going to try and do that here too. So I've got a dish in. I'm now going to round the corner off. I've got a rounding bit set up here, and the reason I've got it mounted like this is because it's that way rather than that way. When rounding off a corner like this, you could plunge cut in, but that's a pretty large sort of contact area for your cutting, and so what you tend to do is, if you have a square edge, the better way to do it is come in and cut a bit here and then back out and cut a bit here and basically creep up on your radii, and it gives you a better result without as much chatter. This is the punch part of my form. That's the tip out of my inner pack cylinder, and so I've just made up I put a recess in the back of this so that that'll locate there. Exact location isn't important so much as having it so it's not going to be misaligned. So if I have the cylinder in clamped in position, I have the lower form clamped in position, everything should line up well enough that this will give me what I want. I faced off this side of the die, for want of a better word, and I want to put an 8-degree angle on there to match my lower die block. I've blued this up, I've put a centre pop in there, and I've just run my dividers around to give myself a mark which is 40 in diameter. I'm about to try my punch and die arrangement out. I need to make sure it's all lined up. This bit here is pretty solid. It's sitting on top of a stack of things, but I need to pump the ram down and get that right. The reason there's a whole bunch of bits and pieces in here is to try and restrict the stroke on the cylinder a bit. The more I can have the piston down there and the seals down there, the straighter it's going to be. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to try a little bit of 1.2 aluminium. I've trimmed the corners off because when you're forming metal like this, the metal on the outside is going to try and act to prevent the movement. And so by trimming the corners off and making sure it's reasonably even, I've got a better chance of getting the form I want rather than having something that's a little bit buckled. Here's my piece of aluminium, and you can probably just make out the dish there. That's around about 2 millimeters, which is what I was aiming for. So that's good. And it's reasonably centrally placed too. You can see there's just a slight indent. Well, I can see there's a slight indent there from the edge, and then there's the dimple there. So that's actually worked to plan. So that's all good. Now I get to do the second bit. I'm working my way around here with the hammer. What I want to do is basically fold this edge up around the radii on the form, and that's the reason that I put that there. It'd be better if it was a steeper cone. Cones can be pretty well self-aligning, but this one being very shallow, it's a little bit sloppy, but I think I've got the alignment about right. And of course, as I get this material bent over, it gets better. One of the key things though is that do it gently and just work it all in. If you start in one spot and bash it right down and then move to the next spot, you'll probably end up with some creasing. So here I'm just gently working that down, and hopefully I'll get the shape I'm after. As you can see, I've now got a shape with it's roughly a 6 millimeter internal radius there. It's got a dished bottom, so that'll sit flat on the surface. It won't rock around. All I need to do now is basically trim this up, and I could either put that on a flat surface and run around there with a pencil to get a line and then come along with the angle grinder, or I could also mount that back up in the lathe, put some pressure there and probably come in and sort of just part that or machine that off. That's now basically the shape I need, so I can put a conical piece on there and go from there. I've put the form tool back in the chuck. I've used the other half to support it. Put a centre pop in the back there, and then I've just come in with a parting tool, and that's trimmed that off quite nicely. And that was, when I originally thought about this tool, that was one of the things I was thinking I could possibly do with it. The alternative is, as I said, is to mark that out with a height gauge or a pencil or something, but this gives me a nice clean edge. To get a cylindrical part even from a set of baby slips like this is not difficult. Just a strip and you wind it through. I'll probably put a hose clamp on that and use that to hold it while I'm tacking, so I can get a decent joint there. To make a cone is a little bit more difficult. There are two schools of thought. One is you jack one side of the rolls up so that it'll roll different curvatures on each side. But what I do here is just roll that through while pulling on that and trying to keep it normal to the axis of the cone. Okay, and so I'll keep working on that, and that'll join together. I can then join that up, weld that bit on, off I go. I used a couple of hose clamps to hold this together while I put a couple of tacks on, and now I'll go back and re-weld that. Here's the body so far. It's still really hot, but I welded on the inside there, and then I did Ron Cavell's trick of just running across the outside just to reflow the outside to get a decent seam. So that's all good. I ground off the inside seam there a little bit after doing the same thing, just to give myself a uniform surface to try and round things up. Next thing, of course, happens is the base goes on, like so. I probably should have made this a little bit longer, so I had a bit of material to manipulate, but I didn't. So you know, that's a trick for the next one. But this is really only a prototype, so we'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching, and when I work out what the next bit's going to be, we'll get back and do some more on this interesting project. Thanks to those who've inspired me, and we'll see you later.